Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sales Talk Show, brought to you by Metal Plus, clearing the way for a safer environment. Always copied, never duplicated. I'm Billy Butts. This is my co-host David Lammers. Today's episode is some listener feedback. Hello, David.
Hey, Billy. Good day, man. Greetings on a
Yeah,
beautiful sunny day here from Toronto, Canada.
yeah, Toronto. Hey, what's the temperature up there, David? We're still a little chilly here.
Yeah, so we're springtime right now. It's always nice when the Blue Jays. We know when spring training's done and the first season openers are happening, and it's spring, right? So
Yeah,
first game is today. First game season opener here in Toronto. Yeah, we're hovering around 32 degrees today. It's cold. We're freezing temps. That's zero
yeah.
degrees here in Canada, and we're looking at. It's a
Celsius.
cold spring, but hey, wouldn't have it any other way. It makes it nice. When it's a cold spring, it's a slow spring, so that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, we're chilly here too. Opening day for the Red Sox at home isn't until next Friday, but we're down in Texas right now. They open up in Texas. I got my Garden Grove hat right here. I don't go
Hey,
far
love
without
it.
that. Keeps me warm when I'm starting to chill out a little bit. But yeah, exciting stuff. I mean, this time of year is always brings different challenges, right? To sales
Mm,
professionals, you got a lot going on. You got a lot on your plate. You got a lot of customer
mhm,
interactions. You got a lot of internal interactions. We're gonna
mhm,
talk about that a little bit today. Internal. You got external customers and internal customers, right? So we'll chat about that. But there's a decent level of stress as we were talking about it in
mm,
the pre-show. We're both kind of wearing multiple hats right now, trying to help out wherever we can. I think this industry is very famous for that, right? You don't just wear one hat, and I'm sure our listeners can relate to that. But what I'm really trying to focus on myself personally is just try and help my team be better. And I don't know what that comes in a lot of different packages, a lot of different forms. Whether I sit with someone and just listen to what they're going through, or I ride along with them and see how they're engaging with customers, or we get on a call and I look at a proposal. We just closed a nice enhancement deal today. One of my account managers, $150,000 enhancement job, which is big for us. But he spent a lot of time on the proposal, and he gave me a really nice debrief the other day. And I'm glad he was able to close it. Right? There's two parts of
mhm,
selling: there's estimating, and then there's closing. Right? And
mhm,
then sometimes you're a good estimator but not a great closer, or
mm,
you're not a great estimator and you close the work at the wrong price, and then there's a
mm.
tremendous amount of stress in your company. But yeah, just excited for the spring. Spring always, golf courses are opening up. I should be able to tee it up tomorrow at my club. It'll be a little chilly. I'll probably have the Garden Grove hat on tomorrow. I'll be out in the links with that on, so I'll
Hey,
send you that.
there you go. There you
But
go.
how
Love
about
it.
you? What's going on in Canada?
Yeah,
It's still chilly.
that's the thing, right? And like, we're coming off a tough winter, a historical winter. We saw one of the weeks here. We had over 2 feet of snow in one week, and it's very challenging for everyone. If you just live here, it's challenging when you get that kind of weather. And people were stuck in the streets. You couldn't get out. They were big events, and snow's always stressful, and so it's great to be on this side of the winter, which is great. But I always look at the things that we're doing behind the scenes. The spring training is all about prep. It's all about prepare, execute, and follow through, right? And
Mhm.
what we're seeing right now is all of the time that has been planned, prepare, right? And now we're in execution mode. But the training is so critical; it's ongoing. So I love spring because it always reminds me of spring training being implemented and ongoing implementation and follow through. So yeah, it's a great time of year. Things are getting rolling here. We're transitioning from what we call white to green. Green.
Yeah.
The winter to the spring, and it's a big time. We've got a lot of customer engagement going on right now with sales, right? New opportunities, a lot of follow through. And one of the big
Onboarding.
things that we've seen, right, with onboarding clients and following through from the winter is communication. Customers love the communication. They deeply value effective and consistent communication, right? They want to know what's going on. Be in the know, right? So I love that. Be in the know. Always be in the know.
Yeah.
Keep your customers in the know.
I know we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but I just had a thought that came
Hmm.
to mind. I want to throw it in here is, a lot of the things that we do, the business, everything happens very fast, right? It's a very fast, when you say to someone, hey, it's a fast paced environment, and everyone's like, ah, yeah, sure it is. And they're like, no, they get in there and they're like, wow, it really is. But something that we see often, and I don't really want to, you know, overlook it, but there's a lot of young men and women that have come through our doors that have started at a low level, laborer, shoveler. that have worked their way up to, senior manager and essentially branch
Mm.
managers. This time of year is really exciting because you get a lot of our winter hires that come on a seasonal role, kind of temporary, and then they get hired to become a full-time employee with benefits, with vacation, and they may or may not have. So there's a lot of energy around that. I get a lot of excitement about getting out into the field, seeing the guys, seeing what they're up to, and meeting the new faces. There's a lot of new faces. Our growth probably puts on 10 to 12 new employees every spring per branch. So that's a lot. So getting to know them,
That's really
know what's
great.
going on in their world is a lot of fun for me. I'm a people person, so it's a lot of fun.
I like that. We see that here too, right? Our operations and the team members that come in to and join our business for the various seasons, right? That we're in, namely our two big hiring seasons, of course, being for the winter and for the spring, right? But yeah, I love seeing the team members that join us for the winter and stay on for the spring, right? And get that opportunity now to really be part of the organization and grow with us. I think it's so true. I identify fully and agree that there's just
It's
it's
it,
so much more exciting to see that and they're engaged, which is awesome because they
it
already know the company now.
it's funny, you really think about it. I guess funny wouldn't be. It's unique because you got an employee that can work for your organization, kind of look under the hood a little bit, look around, meet some people, and say, "Oh, I kind of like it here. I'd like to work full time." I guess you could say that in like the supermarket business and part time, but to be able to work at a job part time and then stay on for a full time career is pretty exciting. This industry has a lot to offer, and on the sales side of it, is really what we talk about a lot. But the operations side of it and the development of some of these account managers and even office administrative people. There's hundreds of thousands of businesses around the country and across Canada that need
Hmm.
really qualified people. So it's exciting.
Hmm. Very much so.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
had a great episode the last time with Samantha joining us, and it was great
Oh,
great to have her on the show. She's such a sales rock star. GSD, she's our GSD girl.
oh man, wish she ever. I mean, that morning I think we had to move up our the show because she had to get off and get on an RFP call, and then
Hmm.
she's a ball of fire. A lot of fun to be around, and you can tell why she's grown through her organization, multiple promotions in the short time she's been there. So
Yeah, she brought us some really great insights on the art of closing the deal and just the power of working closely with clients, really listening to their needs, understanding their needs, and bringing solutions that deliver results. Yeah, that was a great episode.
I love her learning opportunity that she created for herself. She found somebody in her organization that was a rock star, and she just sat in
Mm.
their office and said, "I'm just going to sit here and listen." The guy's like, "Well, I don't know. It might be a long day." She goes, "No, I'm looking forward to it." And she said she literally sat there all day and I just enjoyed how he engaged and now they work
Mhm.
very closely together. It's been a great partnership the way the company has grown, and she's been able to grow with it as opportunities present themselves. So yeah, she's got some
Mm.
great insight. If you get a chance, go back and listen to it on Spotify, iTunes. It's really good stuff.
Mhm. Well, the sales game, I guess, is what I was going to say, is really truly a sales game. And back a few months ago, you and I put out a post to our industry friends, right, and to our listeners to say, hey, we're doing this for you. The sales talk show is about you, right? It's about providing sales leadership and insights and strategies for sales professionals, whether you're a seasoned, experienced professional or up and coming, right? And so that was why we did the show, and that's why we're doing it. And we put that post out, and we garnered great feedback, didn't we? For ideas and thoughts, for questions and topics that truly matter to people right now, things that are relevant.
We absolutely did. I thought that was a great idea. The listeners have, approached you and I in different settings, whether it's a business setting or networking setting or, industry event, and they've brought up thoughts and ideas. And it's tough to capture that information on the fly, right? So
Mm-hmm.
physically putting out there in
Mm-hmm.
a social post allowed us to,
Mm-hmm.
really absorb it a little bit and think about it. And I'm looking forward to it today. I think there's going to be some good chatter back and forth on some of these topics, which
Hmm.
I think if we look at them, one person might have asked the question, but I'm sure many are thinking about it as well.
Mm, very true. And when you're in it, we're in it to win it, right? And so we always want to make sure that what we're doing is intentional, that we're learning from each other, though. That is key, right? There's so much for us to learn from each other. And I love the power of networking. And that I see that very much in what we're doing, right? The power of networking, even with our friends of the Sales Talk Show providing us with this feedback today that we're going to walk through together, right? And address some of these ideas, these topics, these questions. There was actually more feedback than what we can cover today. But we're just excited to be able to hit on some of these key points that were shared for things that are relevant right now, I think, right? Because especially being the spring and everything we're doing right now.
Good point. Yeah, good point. It's the timing right now is timing is everything. And if we can share some information with the listeners right
Hmm.
now that they can apply to their day and make it easier, make their life easier, maybe
Hmm.
help close a deal. We're still in the
Hmm.
closing window, right? The window hasn't closed. We
That's
still
right.
got,
That's
probably
right.
3 or 4 weeks left. Then you got the old mid-season pickup time. So lots still to happen.
Well, let's get right into it. One of our friends of the show asked a question. Mark asked us from Outdoor Pride. He was saying, "Listen, maybe at some point, can you talk about and explain, what the emotional intelligence connection is, right? That's needed in the sales process, right? How understanding and responding to customer emotions and building real connections, demonstrating genuine care. How do all these things affect ultimately closing the sale?" So I thought it was a really good question that Mark asked, and something
Mm,
that is exciting to unpack right now as it relates to emotional intelligence, of course, building trust and all of that around that, right? Understanding the customer
mm.
emotions. How do you
Yeah.
navigate that, Billy? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a great question. Mark and I spend a lot of time together one on one, and I think the reason we work so well together is because we both think a lot alike, and the client relationship is the key to growing a business is individual relationships, company wide relationships, and I think what he means, and maybe I can give my spin on it is, and I'd love to hear your thoughts is there's a lot that goes into these people that are running their business. And they're doing a lot of things other than assigning a landscape and a snow agreement and managing a landscape and a snow agreement and doing all the things they have to manage a building all the building infrastructure. Maybe they have a team. Maybe they're part of a regional group. They got a lot going on. So when Mark says a lot of times when we get a new client or we engage with a new partnership, we talk about being an extension of their team. And I think in a way, we have to
Mm-hmm.
be trusted with that. That's a statement, but it has to be have some depth to it. So in order for
Mm-hmm.
us to be an extension of the team, they have to say, you know what, I get this guy Billy Butts, I get this guy John or Jimmy. I see who they are. I get them. So when I tell them to do something on my property for my client, I can trust it. There's an emotion there. There's a he's saying we're invoking a level of trust that you would give to a coworker, a family member,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a family kind of like a lever there. You kind of pull and you're like, hey, you know what? I really need you to do this. Or if I'm going to give you this job, you really need to do a good job for me. So I think when he's saying evoking the emotion and intelligence, it's how do you get there, right? How do you get a person to speak to you on that level? And I think that's the special sauce is just getting under the hood and talking to somebody about what they really, really care about. A lot of times what we do is we ask the client, what does the landscape, snow is not so sexy, right? Snow has to get done. You want everybody to be safe. But the landscape invokes emotion, right? They care about the landscape. Their tenants care. Their ownership cares on what it looks like. So how do you get those emotions out in a one-on-one meeting or a call or a virtual meeting? And I think that's what he's getting at is how do we dig in a little bit rather than just being on the a surface conversation or like a
Yeah.
very high level discussion. It's not going to earn you business. It's not going to win your org. You got to get into
Yeah.
those deeper discussions. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, right? The emotional intelligence, I think it's about having the ability and the insight to not being afraid to connect with the client and to ask the difficult question. Ask the difficult question or ask the question that might bring the difficult answer. Right? Don't be afraid, right? To
Mm,
address the what you potentially know is the elephant in the room. I mean, the customer knows that that if you don't address it, if you don't understand, if you're not listening and engaging truly with what's going on with your client, they're going to see right through you. And I think
mm,
having that insight, I would say it's just a natural, you know I would say it does come with natural ability, but to be able to recognize when the customer's upset, or recognize when they have something more they want to share. I think it's really important that sales professionals, whether you're in business development, account management, customer success, whatever it is, that you're not afraid to ask are we taking care of everything? Are all your needs being met?
mm,
Are we truly representing what you are looking for us to represent for you, right?
mm.
Are we helping you? Are we really
Yeah,
helping you, or are we hurting you? And
yeah,
are we making your job easier, or are we making it more difficult? And I
yeah.
think we need to remember not to be afraid and use these key questions that go deeper, like you just said, right? And this is the emotional intelligence that's needed, right? Not being afraid to ask those questions, which will result in real information, real responses, and get to the real heart of the issues, so that our customers know that we're looking after them.
Yeah, I think another layer to that in a way that you could, once you develop that level of trust and you feel like there's a back and forth that's uh, there's some context to your conversation. I've had the opportunity to ask a client, at some point you get the feeling that there's something there, worth extending the conversation, maybe getting a little risky with it, right? So sales are kind of fun, right? You can kind of push the envelope a little bit. You just ask the client, if you had a magic wand, if you
Mm-hmm.
were able to wave it, what would waving a magic wand to create the perfect landscape partner? What would that
Mm-hmm.
look like?
Yeah.
And I'd love someone to be here every week for me. I'd love someone to be responsible. I'd love someone to
Mm.
be able to give us proposals when we don't really need them. I'd love someone to help me with my budget. Now, as a salesperson, that's like taking an open book test, right? So you're
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
taking down all the information and then you turn your proposal around to represent what they feel like would be the ideal partner. So I think that's what Mark's getting at, is when you can get to that part of the conversation and you can get a customer talking like that, you're more likely to
Mm-hmm.
close that work. If you mail an
Yeah.
RFP in and you call 3 times, you don't hear from anybody, you were just one of 5 bids that was going into their inbox, and they're probably going to stay with their incumbent. There's no emotional intelligence there. That's just
Mm-hmm.
like, that's almost like check the box if you're not a robot, right? It's like, come on now. This is,
Yeah.
that's an AI driven proposal. So the people side
Yeah.
of things,
Yeah.
being in front of people, shaking hands, pressing the flesh,
Mm.
we hand deliver a lot of our proposals. When possible, we like to get in front of a customer, get a proposal in front of
Mm.
them, sit there and see the emotion, the
Mhm.
emotional intelligence right there when they see the number, they see the proposal, they ask a couple questions.
Yeah.
So that's something I would recommend to our listeners, to hand deliver proposals when you can.
Yeah, the white of the eyes, right? Get in
Yeah,
front of them. See the white of their eye, the white of their eyes. I've heard before, right? That expression.
yeah, yeah.
It's interesting about the emotional intelligence that drives what the result is, right? It drives along that long-term relationship, right? When the client really truly sees and knows, right? And it feels, I mean, because when you're showing emotional intelligence to your client, they're going to feel the impact of that. It's really truly something they feel. It resonates with them. And I think
Hmm.
that is what also, and I'm going to get to this in a minute because it builds trust. That trust that's being built really helps establish a long-term relationship. That customer is going to they're going to give you their business, and they're going to give you all of their business. They trust you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and they're going to come to you for everything, and they're going to become your best friend. They really are. And that's the key, that right, that's what you want. That's the desired outcome.
Yeah, and I think we throw that word around a lot in sales: trust, building a trust-based relationship. They got to be able to trust you to make a decision. people do business with people they like and trust. It's in there. It's right. It's kind of like one of those.
Mm.
That's that nugget, right? But like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you develop trust with a customer? Like, what is it? What is that,
Mm.
right? And what I've told my team, and I've always done in my way, is just follow through. Just do what you said you're going to do, or
Yeah.
maybe even do something. Maybe do something a little more. Maybe do more than you said. Exceed the
Mm.
expectations.
Mm-hmm.
If you told him you're going to get it back to him by Friday, send him something Thursday. Oh, I like this
Mm.
guy. Billy said he's going to get back
Mm-hmm.
to me, and he did. Or if they ask you for some details, or they ask you a question you don't know, a lot of times there's an opportunity to build trust with a client is to ramble on and say something right in front of them. I would say that's probably 70% effective building trust. If
Mm.
you can say something like, David, that's a great question. I know I've had it come up before, but your property's a little different. I want to check with my team. I got 2 or 3 people on my team that have dealt with this before. Is it okay if I get back to you tomorrow on that? I'll give you something by noontime tomorrow. Put a
Mm-hmm.
clock on yourself. Hey, by noontime tomorrow, I'm going to get you this information. You send them a nice detailed package on that question with a photo or two. That's going to be more
Mm-hmm.
impactful. That's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
oh wow, look at this guy Billy. No, my incumbent would never do that. Now
That's right.
you've built that first level of trust, right? So I think
Mm.
that's a neat way to kind of break that wall down when you first meet a new client or you're meeting a prospect.
It's really true, right? And one of the friends of the show, Dan, actually, he brought that up, right? About how do we build trust? What does that look like? Billy, you
Mm,
just gave some good examples of that, right? And for Dan, right, his question is very relevant, and understanding what that means. Well, it starts with active listening. It starts with
mm,
seeking to understand the customer's real pain points, right, and their real needs, and demonstrating expertise in the sales process. You know, you can get a customer's attention and their trust right away just by phoning them back when they've called the company. You know,
mm,
I'll bet you one out of 10 times someone's calling the customer back. The rest aren't. Nine out of 10 times, guys aren't calling back as prompt. Right. So, what is your
mm,
callback strategy? Do you respond immediately same day to leads when they come in, to requests? Right. Are you setting up
yeah.
that discovery call? To hear and learn about their needs, and then share a bit about who you are and what you can do for them, and have that 30-minute discovery call, and then
Mm,
and then set up in that call the site meeting. I mean, by doing these things alone, you're setting yourself apart immediately and building trust with the client before you've even met them face to face.
mm,
And so then walking the site and getting them their preliminary proposals on time, or even before you said you would deliver. I think there's just so many ways that we can build trust with clients in the sales process, and
yeah.
and it all starts at the very beginning with phoning them back immediately. It's communication.
Dan's a great friend. I'm glad he asked that question because
Mm.
we have chatted about it in the past because he's one of those the type that asks why a few times. Why would you do that? And then you get the answer. He's like, why? Really? And he asks one
I
more
like
layer.
that.
He's like always digging, right? So I love that about him. But I think when you think about um, let's talk about prospects because prospecting is not easy for any of our listeners and our myself either. Trying to gain trust with a prospect is like really hard, right? Especially now, you got all these ways of reaching people, through there's a lot of AI generated email that go out, and it's probably being blocked by a lot of servers. But
Yeah.
I think the one way that I would say that a pros to for a salesperson to engage with a prospect and start the trust tree is to give them something that they didn't expect, right?
Mm.
Be the person or be the salesperson. They're like, wow, I didn't expect that. Huh.
Mm.
That's pretty good.
I
I
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah.
I like that. Something unexpected. So I don't know what it
Hmm.
is. Like I think my reference to unexpectedness always comes back to car dealerships. But car dealerships they're pretty predictable, right? You go in there, you buy a car, you sit there, you talk to a salesperson, a sales manager comes over, gives you the final price. You don't like it. If you finally decide, then you go to the finance office. The finance office tries to sell you extra insurance for your tires that you don't really want. It's pretty predictable, right? So I'm like, I don't,
Hmm.
I don't. I mean, sales and a car dealership doesn't really mean anything to me. But when I get a woman that comes over or a salesperson comes over and says, so and so is going to be right with you. Why don't you sit here and I'm going to put this video on for you because our dealership is pretty well known for their service department. And just watch this 2-minute video about our service department. I'm like, okay, well that's different, right? I haven't even
Mhm.
talked to anybody yet, and the woman asked me to sit down on this beautiful, luxurious couch and asked me to watch a video about their service department. That was great because we all live in video, 30, 40, 50 seconds of snippets. So I think if you can to build trust, to Dan's comment, and to be, long-winded about it, but do something that's unexpected. Be different.
Mm. Yeah, it's so true. I recently, just on that point, right? I had that experience of having experienced something I didn't expect when I
Yeah.
needed to get new tires on my vehicle, and I brought it to the dealership. There was a couple things actually. There was a few I did not expect that moments, and
Yeah.
it related to I was offered multiple options for tires for my car. They
Mm.
actually put me through to the parts department,
Yeah.
and the parts department, they were the experts on what was needed for my car, with the
Yeah.
type of vehicle, the rim size, and they gave me five. Like, I didn't expect them to give me all these options. Then they went through the process of explaining to me all about the tires and what I needed to know about them, and
Yeah.
why the pricing was all different. And then at the end, they explained to me, what was the course, best to worst option,
Show value.
and
Yeah.
which one to go with, right? What was the right one to go with, and in the end, it was the same ones I had, and why. And so that was neat. And then it went back to the scheduling department. Scheduling department then scheduled the vehicle with me. Then I got a follow-up text message that my appointment was for when my appointment was scheduled for, right? Because they
Yeah.
got my cell phone. So,
Yeah. Sure.
then when I dropped the vehicle off and I worked with the service tech, I got a text message after I left from the shuttle, who was so gracious to drive me home. They were waiting for me. That was prearranged. And
Yeah.
the shuttle was prearranged. It was waiting for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then I got a text messages along the way about how things were going with my vehicle, and when it would be ready. And when it was ready, the communications was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'd never ever experienced anything like that before. And
Well,
so when
and
you
and
look, and so I, yeah, go ahead.
that, I mean, the likelihood of you going back to that dealership is pretty high,
Oh yeah, I told the
right?
driver
It's
of
pretty high. You just,
yeah,
yeah,
100%. I said to the driver of the vehicle at the shuttle, I said, "This is amazing service." I said, from the
yeah,
moment of the selection of, and the tires were the same price as anywhere else. The
mm,
dealerships, they know they can't compete on, they can't be more expensive.
yeah,
So these are the ways that when we take these key points, right, these takeaways, this is what is relevant, and to make it relevant for our own businesses, right? And so Dan was great at unpacking that. It's interesting so when we talk about nurturing the relationship, right? And that's the key of building trust, right? That's what happened to me. They were nurturing my relationship with just getting new tires put on my car. Something run of the mill, but it was so significant. We had another guest of the sales, or another friend of the sales talk show, actually bring up another point of discussion, which was, I don't have a sales process. So okay, we talk a lot about the sales process, but the response from Thane, one of the friends of the show, right,
oh,
was, listen, I don't have a sales process. I do something different, and I thought that
yeah.
was cool. He's like, I have a relationship process. Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, Thane is a good friend of ours. He hosts a really cool podcast on Coffee on the Peak. It's every Friday morning
Yeah.
at 8 o'clock. It's the way I kick off my weekends, getting some insight from him and Stephanie just joined him. Stephanie Leveling from Boss Software. So yeah, it's a great question because I think a lot of our again our listeners, they could be lone rangers, they could be owner
Mm.
operators. That we talked about this before. There was a guest we had on that was an owner operator, and they were forced to do everything. And we talked about it in the opening of the episode. We wear multiple
Yeah.
hats, and if you're an owner operator, you're not likely going to be you don't really have a sales process.
Mm.
You might have something organically built, and you might just kind of follow it just because it's your nature. But to have a formal sales process um, is probably pretty rigid I know it's rigid for a guy like Thane. So Thane's more engaged in building relationships with people, and once he has a relationship, then he can open up opportunities for with
Hmm.
that client, or maybe that relationship allows him to meet somebody else inside that organization. So no, I love the theme of it. I love the idea that he's not focused on a process; he's focused on the people. The
Hmm.
people side
Hmm.
of his engagement is more important to him than checking a box saying, he sent an intro email, he sent a follow up email, he sent a call, he stopped by. Sure, that's all important, but I think he's making the reference that he's more focused on getting that conversation and really building on that.
Hmm. Yeah, which I really like, right? And that's what he points out. He points out that for him, having this relationship process, it's a result of if he doesn't have this relationship, it's not going to drive business. In other words, if I'm going to get the business, it's because I have this relationship.
Hmm.
He deeply values the relationship, right? And so if business comes to him because of the relationship, he's like, then I'm blessed. He's like, and if it doesn't, then I'm still blessed, because he puts so much value on the fact that he just really values the relationship. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? As long as he has a relationship, he said that's how he does it. It's all about building a relationship, and it's very true. It's very true.
Yeah, yeah, and he can. He's the type of guy that he might not have what you want. If you had a question for him, or if you were in a situation where you were negotiating, uh, let's just use an example. Like if you're trying to negotiate a contract with a client and you're not able
Hmm.
to get to the number, but you have to kind of step away and say, you know what, it's no now, it's just not no never. But
Hmm.
Dane's the type of guy that he'd be in that situation and be like, I know we're not going to work together today, but what else can I help you with?
Hmm.
If you don't need a landscape vendor, I've got a great network of people. I'd love to be able to help you with some of my other, friends in the industry. I heard you complain a little bit as I entered the meeting. You were just wrapping up a call with your recycling and your trash vendor. I've got some great partners in that circle. Can I introduce you to a couple of my friends? I think that's where he excels in his relationship building process, is what he says.
Yeah, and as you're sharing that, I'm thinking about the significance that the relationship plays as we're doing business with our clients, and with our clients, with our vendors, with anyone for that matter. And at the end of the day, if you don't have a relationship, what do you have, right? It's that you can't work together with someone if you just have a contract.
Yep.
If a client says, listen, we have a contract, right? Like when the rubber meets the road, right? When the tough gets tough, right? If there's a situation that happens and you're entering difficulty with a client, and your relationship is strained, or if you don't have a relationship anymore, what do you have left? If you don't have
Mm-hmm.
a relationship, you don't have anything left, because they're just going to hold you to the contract, and the contract is, that's just going to be a fight, and there's no
Yep.
relationship anymore when it's just about the
Sure.
contract. And so you have a transactional relationship, or a transactional situation otherwise with the client, if you don't have a
Mm.
relationship. And when things get tough, if you have a relationship with the client, you can work things out, right? Family
Mm-hmm.
members, Lord willing, God willing, most family members, when there's issues, you can work things out because you're family members. You never signed a contract with a family member, right? You're born into the family, right? You
Yeah.
didn't get to
Yeah.
choose that. You had no choice, right? But
Yeah.
it's a relationship, and your family, and you got to be able to work things out. And so when you have a relationship, you can work things out. And so that's
Yeah.
really key too, right? That's a beautiful thing when you have a genuine relationship.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that is important too is, you know, our industry. I talked about it again in the opening. It was very fast paced, lot of moving parts. It's somewhat dangerous in the winter. It's a lot of snow and ice situations, which nothing's really ever perfect. So there's a chance that you could make a mistake, right? There's a chance you could do some damage to a property. It's happened to all of us, right? You don't want to, but it happens. The
Mhm.
level of relationship you have with that client is going to escalate or de-escalate how that damage conversation goes, right?
Mhm.
It's either going to be you don't have a great relationship and you call someone and say, we actually hit a light pole. I'm awful sorry. Oh, what are you talking about? How am I gonna do this? Or if you have a relationship, you hit a light pole, you say, I'm awful sorry, we hit a light pole. All right, we get it, Billy. It happens all the time. I totally understand. Let's just get it safe for our
Mhm.
clients. I'll have my
Mhm.
electrician come out and disconnect it. So you see the different,
Yeah.
you see the different
Right. Right.
conversations, how they're very, very different. Without a
Very much
relationship,
so.
you're gonna get put on the hot seat. With a relationship,
Yeah.
you're gonna work through it together. So
Yeah.
I
That's
can
right.
totally appreciate what Thane's saying.
Yeah, and there's no trust, right? Just listening to the tone of your voice and the two examples you just shared, there's no trust in the first example, right? But when
Correct.
there's real genuine trust built through a relationship, right? Then
Yep.
you're working together. You're solving the situation together,
Yep.
and it's a shared effort. The waters might be rough, but it's calm. It's calm underneath,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I like that.
Um, and we have that role to play with our clients too, right? We have a job to play with that. It's really important that we're always investing in the relationship.
Mm,
That is so important. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street, and we have such a role to play in that.
for
um,
sure.
yeah, that's a big part of it, right? I always like to say too, if there's problems or issues, or if someone did something wrong, if we're always pointing the finger one direction, I always got to remember there's three coming back at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So when I got my pointer out, there's still three coming back at me. So what can I do, right? There's at least
I
three
love
ways
that.
for the one, right? That I can do more, right? Yeah,
I love
right.
that.
If there's something
That's
going
great.
on, there's three more coming back at me.
I like that. I
So
like
what
that.
can I do to invest in the relationship, right? There's at least three ways that I can work on things. It's
That's good
interesting. It's a
stuff.
busy time right now. One of another one of the friends of the show, Ron from Outdoor Pride,
Mm,
again shared with us some of his thoughts about the challenge, right, that's ongoing as it relates to communications internally, right, amongst sales team members, operations team members, right, business growth, right, companies, yeah, going through growth cycles, right. How do we manage interpersonal relationships, all that kind of stuff. Let's talk a bit about
mhm.
some of the things that Ron asked, right, as we foster internal relationships between sales and operations and company wide. How do we
Yeah, I
bring
mean,
people together?
Ron and I spend a lot of time together on this topic because it is important, and there's a lot of, to use the analogy again, there's a lot of moving parts in our industry. I think the thing that really Ron likes to focus on is if you do his disc assessment, his analysis, who he is, he's a fact finder, right? He wants to know what's going on. He wants to understand a lot
Hmm.
of the nuances of the decision, right? If we're proposing something, he wants to know where it is, what's going on, what's the traffic pattern there, how are we going to get there. So as business developers, we kind of get caught in the ether of just go, 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 when an operations person or a branch manager slows you down and says, well, what's that job all about, Billy? Or what's that job all about? And you download with them, then they can start to get situationally aware of how they're going to deliver the job before they actually have to sit in front of the customer and make that promise that they can deliver it a certain way. So business developers, we're pretty comfortable kind of walking out in the plank and talking about what our ops team will do. We're very confident. I'm very confident in our ops team. But operations people are less likely to go out in that plank because they're more to, a bigger team to kind of engage. So I think Ron's point is, you know, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is when is the right time to communicate internally to your team about a deal, right? A lot of times says,
Hmm.
oh, don't tell your team about the deal too soon because if it doesn't happen, people get upset. Account managers think they're getting a new deal. I'm sure there's a lot of merit to that, but
Hmm.
sometimes it's good to kind of at least open the jar a little bit, right, and just see what's going on
Hmm.
and give everybody a sense of this could happen. By the way, this
Hmm.
looks good. Whatever you use for percentages. So I think that's what he's.
Hmm.
And initially, I think that's what he's thinking, and I'd be curious to think how you guys internally communicated out at God Grove.
Yeah, we like to grade in the sales pipe. Where are we at in the pipeline? So is it 50%?
Hmm.
Everything's 50% unless otherwise indicated, right, from a client if they're moving
Hmm.
forward, right? And you can then get a client to 75% in the process, 80%. I think for us, when anything we look at 75% and up, when we see positive indicators from the client that they're going to be moving forward with us, we want to make sure that operations knows what is happening there, like what is going to be going to close, what percentage of what's open right now in the pipeline, where are we at, what is 75% and more, and
Hmm.
just to get some kind of an indication for preparing. And then and then involving operations in what are these opportunities, where are they, what are they, how big are they, what are the resources that are required, right? And because everything is put together based on time, right? Time and equip, what's needed for the site, because of course, our being in the service industry, you and I know it's all about time
Yep.
and resources. And so that they're able to plan and prepare ahead of time, for especially the spring right now. We're into so we're going to be finding out in the next 10 days, because we're going to hear through early April still about awards. And so in the next 15 days, right, everything's going to get buttoned up for April 1st or April
New
15th
business.
starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is a key time for operations to know what for route optimization, right? For hiring, right? How many staff members? What do we need? We always project our growth, So are we going to hit our sales targets? That's a big part of it, right? And so sales communicating with operations. What's the budget? Operations needs to know what's the sales budget, and are we going to hit that budget?
Sure.
Right? And so what's in the pipeline? Is that going to hit target? Because operations is preparing to hit target. So
Yeah.
it's very, very important that everybody understands the numbers that way and that they're in the loop. So we communicate regularly, where we're at weekly updates to make sure everyone knows where are we at in the pipeline and what's moved closer to close, and what potential can they see for hitting the ground when we get running.
Yeah, I like that, the communication weekly. I think we do an okay job of it at a leadership level. I don't think we do a great job of it below that, like the middle manager level. I think we need to be better at that, getting the information out and letting them digest it a little bit before it becomes a full meal right in front of them, right? Because when it becomes a full meal right in front of them, they might not be ready for it. And I think there's a lot to be said for someone to be, I like to be prepared. I like to know what's coming on, what's about to, be put in front of me. So we have a pretty good process where when we earn a piece of business, this is important for, part of Ron's question, I think, is we do what's called an in-house pre-job. So when we earn the business, we have the business developer, the ops team, the branch leadership, probably branch admin. We'll sit down and we'll go through the new business that we've won, and we'll walk through a site map. The business developer will talk about the relationship, how we earned the business, what was the connection, give a little context about the new business, and then we'll get into like hours. We'll start talking about hours and quantity of a mulch and color of mulch, and it just gives them a chance in an inside setting, not in front of a customer, to say, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. I think we could do that job. So that's something we've instituted over the last, excuse me, 3 or 4 years, is doing the in-house pre-job. And I know Ron and his team and our branch team up in New Hampshire really like that.
Yeah, that's a very effective strategy. I like that. We haven't done that, and I think that's a great way of doing it. Something we have started doing though is have operations team members come along to the client meetings as well when we're for introductions with sales team members, right? And so that they're hearing up front from the client, that they're meeting the client, that they're not finding out along the way about things, but that we're bringing them right at the very beginning of the process too, right? That's been a pain point in the past, is when operations hasn't been part of things from the very beginning. And I think for us, capturing it right up front. I like that in-house pre-job, right? And looking at it beforehand, right? That way everybody knows and understands, what's being sold to the client and what the expectations are. Of course, we use software for that, which is very helpful as well, so that everything is in the system and that everything's clear, right? So yeah, that's key. I mean, some of the other stuff Ron talked about was, what are the impacts above, how does growth impact some of these communication things too, right? And what additional challenges should companies expect to face when scaling their businesses? I mean, yeah, the teams get bigger, right, as we grow, and the need for information sharing increases. No doubt.
Yeah, I think any company that I think if you're really good at renewing and extending your work, you're probably north of 85, 90%, hopefully, right? If you're doing your job, and 10% is almost automatic. Businesses move, ownership changes, customers, decide, maybe a little bit more on the residential side where they move and sell their property, but on commercial, still happens. Properties sell, transact. You can sometimes stay on, sometimes you can't. So you probably expect a 10%, loss. So you got to sell at least 10% to get back to even. So
Mm-hmm.
then you grow from there. Yeah, I mean, I would say, how do people handle growth? I think it's different for everybody. I think a lot of people, some people are excited about it because it presents opportunity, promotions, new accounts. Some of our account managers, they love growth because they get a couple new accounts with some new enhancement sales opportunity for commissions. That's a good thing, right? Account managers love to add a few more jobs every year as long as it doesn't overwhelm them. So yeah, understanding internally how we can grow. I think the branch sales goal is pretty well noted. It should be, if you have a goal, it should be known so people can kind of at least feel that and think, that's
Mm-hmm.
probably 2 more trucks, that's probably 6 more guys, that's probably
Mm-hmm.
2 more trailers. So mechanics, the shop has to get involved to purchase fleet, engage, and that's just a goal. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to be sure as a sales professional that you can support that goal. If your operation is going out and buying fleet and equipment
Mm-hmm.
to support your goal, that's a lot of pressure. So I
Mm-hmm.
think, to Ron's point, that internal communication, how it all weaves together, the goal and the growth and everything, how do people understand how to scale? I think it's, I want to bring it back to trust, right? Does
Mm-hmm.
the operations team trust the salesperson to do what he says he's going to do? Do they just sit there and think,
Mm-hmm.
that guy said it last year, he never really did a good job of getting there on his goal, and look at us, we bought those 2 trucks and we never used them, or we bought that big mower and we never used it. So yeah, probably a level of trust, internal trust has to be developed, internal
Yeah.
customers, external
Yeah.
customers. Yeah,
Yeah. That's a good
for
point,
sure.
right? And knowing that everyone's going to everyone's pulling together, right? That we're all towing the line together and working
Mm-hmm.
together. That's a really
Mm-hmm.
good point. There's
Yeah.
so many different things that we can, of course, build on from some of the other thoughts that were shared from friends of this talk show. There was
Yeah.
some questions that related to types of contracts and seasonality of and right cycles and just knowing right how to tailor things and setting things up for your clients. So much opportunity here to tap into some more questions
Yeah,
in
I
the
know. I
future.
know we're going to do a show later on when the snow sale season comes back around, maybe early June, even July. We'll talk about the different types of contracts and the success that you and I have had with retention deposits and scaling payment schedules to afford
Hmm.
equipment operations and mobilization and stuff. So yeah,
Hmm.
there was some great questions. We appreciate the feedback. We love the feedback. Keep it coming. If there's something
Yeah,
that we
hundred
didn't hit
percent.
on or something you want to hear, just we're on LinkedIn. We're easily accessible. You can reach us and just send it along. Set up a call. We'd love to talk to you about it. So
I think the big thing from today, and we talked a lot about trust today. We talked about building relationships. Happy customers buy, right? When a customer is happy, when a customer knows you're there for them, they buy. They
mm,
invest. They invest. So when we're investing in them in the relationship, their way of reciprocating is by buying, right? And
yeah,
and when a customer stops buying, there's something wrong with the relationship. So, right, a happy customer should always be spending money.
yep,
They need to,
yep. I would
right?
agree.
And so I think that's a really good indicator, and we've talked a lot about that today. And even from each other as team members, we need to be relying on each other and supporting each other and ultimately buying from each other, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
buying what I'm saying. If what I'm telling you is true, right? Do our team members trust what I'm saying as a sales professional, right? And so building trust with our team members is so key. Interpersonal relationships, right, that are built on trust.
Hmm.
So Billy,
Yeah.
I think that's about a
Well,
wrap. We're excited to close out this episode. And wow,
wow.
episode 12. Here we are. We're 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year in. It was a great first year. We're excited about all the new and potential exciting things we're going to be sharing with everybody in the future. We've got a couple of speaking opportunities coming up. Both you and I are going to be speaking at the Cymer Symposium in June.
Hmm.
Sales that scale. There's even some talk that we might even be able to get this podcast over there in a live setting. So maybe some of our listeners and friends of the show want to come by, and maybe they might be able to sit down and throw a mic in front of them and see how they do. Everybody says,
That's
"Oh,
right.
that seems so easy for you guys." Well, maybe we'll
Come
put
on
someone
over.
co-host a couple of friends of the show. That'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, we're excited about
Absolutely.
that. It's always a great show. Alliance partners of ours. Simon has been very generous to us, helping us,
Mm.
keep the show going and getting
Hmm.
the message out. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and then you're coming to Toronto in July to speak at the
Yeah,
Snowposium from Landscape Ontario. That's exciting.
yeah, Snowposium. That's going to be fun. A good friend, Joe Salimi, up there, and their team reached out to me after meeting them in Pittsburgh last year and offered me an opportunity to come speak to them on sales. So, going to get a chance to sit in front of some snow professionals, and whether they're operators or sales professionals, and give them some tidbits on sales. And my goal at that is to really lean into them on my background, which is operations. I was fortunate enough to have a great career in operations for 10, 15 years, and I transitioned to sales. Probably not the typical salesperson's career path, but I think it helps me in a lot of ways, and I think I'll be able to be pretty relevant speaking to them. So excited about that.
Hmm.
Should be fun.
Yeah, no, that's it. You're helping your clients from a position of knowledge, right? And so being able to speak in that way, right, and bring insights to our audience here, right, in Canada, for those who will come to the Snowposium,
Yeah,
they will be better. They will be blessed and better off for having heard from you.
yeah,
And so that's
that's great.
exciting. And you're speaking in other opportunities this year, and so that's exciting. We've got a great year lined up. We're excited for the guests that we have lined up this year, and the next episode that'll be coming out in April of the Sales
Yep.
Talk Show. So that's exciting. And then, as you said a moment ago, we're excited for the partnerships from of course Metal Plus sponsoring the show and being our title sponsor, and our alliance partners Simon and Landscape Ontario. So we're very grateful for them
Yeah,
to
we had a
be.
great winter with Metal Plus. Metal Plus, we over the last 3 years we converted to all Metal Plus, and we couldn't be happier. The
Mm,
equipment, the technology, the support, it's all there. They're doing it right. It's nice to be able to see them at the trade shows because they can let their hair down a little bit and sit back and talk to all the what they've gone through. Right, they've gone through a pretty good growth spurt themselves, and they've been able to sustain it. So they're doing something right there. So I love to, take a look at what they're doing and mirror some of their best practices too. So great.
no, that's awesome.
Well,
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 Billy, I
that
think that's a wrap.
I think that's it. Another show. Another. We'll see everybody. Hopefully, listen to everybody. If you don't get a chance to, you can watch previous episodes. Listen to previous episodes on Spotify and Apple iTunes. And yeah, have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening.